Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania has now been out in theaters for a few days, so I'm here to give you guys my spoiler-filled review of this movie. If you guys have not seen this movie yet, be sure to check out my spoiler-free review in my playlist with my MCU movie reviews. And once you've seen the movie, come back and check out this video and leave a comment of what you thought about it. Feel free to spoil away in this video. As well, be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Now let's get into this review. So like I said in my last video, I was really disappointed in this movie, and I was really excited to see it because I really enjoyed the first Ant-Man movie and I enjoyed the second one. But this one, like I said, just did not feel like an Ant-Man movie. It's much more serious, and one thing I didn't mention in my spoiler-free review is that the tone of this movie is constantly switching. There are moments like with Kang where it's very serious, not many jokes, he's not a jokey villain at all. And then there's other things that get very goofy and too goofy for me. There's this one character that's sort of like made out of jelly or something. It gets really goofy. There are some nice laughs with him, but in the final act where he's got these holes in him, it's a running joke on holes that I didn't really care for. It got really just too over the top for me. So yeah, this movie just did not feel like an Ant-Man movie. And I know Peyton Reed wanted to do an Avengers level movie, and if I didn't know that, I would have said this movie felt more like they had this idea to do a movie that set up Phase 5 and it set up the Kang Dynasty, and they're going to introduce Kang, but they didn't know what hero to use, so they had a board with all the heroes they still have and threw a dart at it randomly, and it landed on Ant-Man. That's sort of what it felt like. But there's still some nice parts to it, like Paul Rudd is still fun as Ant-Man, even though there's less humor. I always enjoy him. Evangeline Lilly as the Wasp, very good, although kind of in the background a bit more in this movie, so it feels like it should have just been called Ant-Man Quantumania, but no, whatever. Some of the other characters were quite good as well. I enjoy Michael Douglas as Hank, Michelle Pfeiffer as Janet. She was good, but one part that kind of confused me was at the end of the second Ant-Man movie, in their sort of post-credit scene, they're sending Scott into the quantum realm, and she seems fine with it. In this movie, she wants nothing to do with the quantum realm, doesn't want anybody going there, so it just felt like things weren't connecting between the movies. Sort of a smaller thing, but kind of annoying. And her character, like, her performance was good, but she had information to give on Kang in the quantum realm, and she just kept not wanting to give that information to Hope and Hank, and I got really annoying because obviously they're just trying to build tension and suspense for Kang, but it was like, really, why aren't you giving them this information? They can use it. So that was kind of annoying. And for me, as I said in my spoiler-free review, my least favorite part of this movie was MODOK. Yeah, so MODOK was Darren from the first movie. He was the villain from the first movie, Yellow Jacket. That idea, I'm sort of like, okay, I guess Darren, whatever, fine. But the look of this character when he lifted up his helmet was really dumb. Like, the CGI did not look good. Like, me and my friend were laughing at it in the theater. It looked really bad. Whenever he pulled the helmet up, I was like, oh, please put it back down. It does not look good. And they do some really just goofy, like too goofy stuff with him. Like the way his character ends in this movie, it's really dumb. And the final scene where he does die, they just keep going over these jokes that just weren't landing. A joke about him, oh, at least I get to die in Avengers, something like that. I'm like, it just wasn't funny. Really did not like the MODOK character in this. So that was sort of disappointing. I didn't know much about MODOK, but it was still disappointing. And then Jonathan Majors as Kang, I thought was really good. I enjoyed his performance, but I just thought Kang wasn't used enough in that there wasn't too much done with him that I'm really going to remember after seeing this movie. There are a few nice scenes with him that I enjoyed. All the stuff with Janet was really good, but nothing too memorable for me. And I found that they sort of hinted a bit of his backstory. They tell you why he's in the quantum realm. He's been banished there by the other Kang variants. That was a cool idea, but some of the other stuff for why he's being this conqueror, kind of wish they delved more into that. And there are parts where it's just like, I'm not sure I buy him being this big threat for Avengers Kang Dynasty that they're building up to, because these big ants that are in the quantum realm with them can sort of overtake him a bit, and he sort of felt like he was defeated a bit too easily. So that was kind of disappointing for me. So Kang himself, I'm still like, he's alright, not the worst villain. It was saved more by Jonathan Majors' performance, which was quite good. I thought he did very well with what he was given. And one thing that really disappointed me about this movie is how it feels very surface level in its story and sort of its characters. And the trailers for this sort of set up a sort of dynamic with Scott and his daughter that, you know, he didn't blip, but he was away for 5 years, missed a lot of her growing up, so maybe there's a strained relationship. And in the trailer they make it seem like Kang is sort of going to make a deal with him, or if Scott does something for him, he's going to give him back that time that he lost. Yeah, they don't do that in this movie. It's more just, Kang's like, if you don't do this for me, I'm going to kill your daughter. Just that. So they had a bit of that emotional character hook of, you know, Scott's trying to protect his daughter, but I'm like, could have done so much more where there would have been personal and emotional stakes to this movie. Like doing that thing where he's trying to get time back because maybe, you know, Cassie not having him in her life, grew up and isn't on the right path, and he missed trying to raise her properly. Maybe there's some great things in her life and he missed sharing it with her. Stuff like that, which I think really would have added an extra layer to this movie. And even the stakes for like the universe, I just felt them lacking, and I think it's partly due to the writing of this movie. I just wasn't invested, and I think part of it too is just that we've gotten so many comic book movies now that's like, okay, we've seen stuff like this before. And I don't know, I'm finding now these comic movies need to do more to sort of stand out and be like, oh, that's new, because we get so much. So that was disappointing and underwhelming. And they do have other things too. It's like, oh, that would have been cool to see more of. Like, they have all these characters from the quantum realm that are being like oppressed by Kang, and they say all these things that have happened to them, but they never show it. I'm like, that would be cool to see some of that. Because some of those characters too look pretty interesting as well. There were some interesting designs. There was some nice creativity with these different creatures and some of the visuals. Sometimes the visuals are a bit too like, okay, it's clearly not real, but there were some that were pretty cool. So it was just stuff like, this movie felt very surface level. Like they had their ideas and just like executed it in the simplest way. Like they didn't delve deeper into it to flesh these things out, which would have added more weight to this movie. And it just didn't have the charm that the other Ant-Man movies have. Like it didn't have the same humor. A lot of the humor just felt flat for me. And just a lot of the stuff, like the MODOK thing. I think the MODOK thing was like the only thing I hated about this movie. I don't hate it. It was just disappointing and disposable, like I said in my previous review for it. So yeah, unfortunately, it was just like, oh, there were these things like, oh, if you just did this a bit more, like something with Scott and his daughter, it would have been a bit better. Like there are great scenes throughout this movie. Like there are some nice scenes at the start, I guess, with the family when they're all talking, I guess, catching up over this 5 years, what's been happening, stuff like that. And there are some fun action scenes, like what I mentioned in my previous review. The one I really enjoyed was the scene with multiple Ant-Man where they're trying to get this thing for Kang. That I thought was really cool. We have all these Ant-Mans, a bunch of them dying and sort of working together and stuff. I thought that was fun. And there are some fun scenes here and there. Bill Murray's got a scene in this that's alright. So yeah, overall it's pretty disposable and disappointing movie. If you saw my previous review, you would have saw my score for this movie was a 54%. I'm going to keep it at that right now. Not a train wreck, but disappointing. So those are some of my spoilery thoughts on this movie. There wasn't as much to really spoil about this movie as I thought there was going to be, but there's some stuff that I wanted to talk about, like MODOK, how much I didn't like that, but didn't want to say it in the spoiler-free review, obviously. So have this video out. So thank you guys for watching this video. Be sure to stay tuned for some more reviews coming soon, and until my next video, take Take care, everybody.